Hey friends, I'm talking to Mr. Ross Neal. So Ross Neal and I met at a resource fair for children with autism recently, and I got to meet his family as well as a few individuals in his network. And we were talking about a book. You saw me put it up here on the screen, "No Be Like Me," that Ross wrote. And Ross was diagnosed with autism at a young age, 8 years old. And it's a different time, right? When Ross was diagnosed to what's going on now, and there were different challenges then that there are now. And so Ross and I were talking about sitting down together and just creating some
hmm
content for families and moms and dads who may be affected by this, talking a little bit about what the history's been like from not from a research or from like a history book perspective, but from a boots on the ground perspective, and then talking about what we see today. So, Ross, welcome, man. I'm glad you're here with me.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you having me on your show.
I'm
For
honored.
being
You know,
here.
I'm also waiting on our pickleball round. I remember we were talking about next time I'm out in Dallas that we're gonna knock down some pickleball together. So
Yeah, we love that. That
you're
would
the
be
resident
awesome.
pro, right?
I guess you could say that.
So talk to me first about No Be Like Me. Right? You wrote this book.
Okay.
It was illustrated by Rahu Matan, I believe,
Yes, that's
and
correct.
it tells a story about a bee that goes through a journey, but not alone, right? It goes through a journey that's
Correct.
backed by a bunch of individuals, family and support systems, and as a result of that, it's goes from autism being something you have to autism being just something that you're able to grow and thrive with. Am I getting that right?
Yes, you did. So the B starts off blue for autism. It's for being more severe in autism. Blue being the blue for autism, and it's more about believing more in himself. And when he was younger, there was a lot of things he was told he wouldn't be able to do. And as he improves on the spectrum and believes more in himself, he slowly becomes a lighter shade of yellow, more like the other bees, being able to do more like the other bees and appearing like the other bees. And it's just about not giving up. And I'm sure my experiences that I've gone through with autism, and just want people to know that, that not to give up hope. And, there's things that they can do with the right support and treatment.
What I mean, I'm sure that in some respects the bee is reflective of your own life, right?
hmm
What prompted this journey? Like what your transition from being the blue bee to the yellow bee? Because I think this is what so many moms and dads want to hear is that, the blue
Okay.
bee is a stigma, but there is a pathway to becoming the yellow bee. What prompted that
What prompted that?
for you personally?
The having the support and treatment, and having the community and somebody who really believes in you. And I having my mother who was always fighting this.
Uh oh, we lost Ross. It's all right. He'll be right back.
Are we back?
Yes, yes. Hey, hey, hey.
Oh, technical difficulties.
Yeah, we love a good technical difficulty. They come in all shapes and sizes, technical difficulties.
This is all just like autism, all part of the technical difficulties we have with it.
The technical difficulty spectrum.
Yeah. Where
You
were
were
we?
telling me, you were telling me about, so you're telling me about your mom, right? And that she was a huge
Yes.
advocate for you.
Yes.
And
Yes, she was.
I think it's important to call out that it was a different time for your mother, right? Not only was there not a ton of resources, but
hmm
there wasn't a ton of faith. Like moms really had to fight to be able to get their children who had autism something, some type of support, some type of help at that point in time. It
hmm
wasn't like, oh, okay, my insurance is going to cover all these services, or there's even,
hmm
someone within 20 miles or 50 miles that knows what they're doing, that type of thing. It was completely different. So you're saying she was the person who really fought for you.
Yes, she was. And there wasn't anything, they didn't even know what was wrong. Um, for many years, it was like, she was told I'd be in an institution the rest of my life, and I wouldn't be able to do any, much of anything. And So it was a totally different time back then.
And how old were you, how long ago was that? How old are you now?
I'm 46,
Okay, you're
almost
46 now.
47.
So, there's something I think about a lot here, which is that autism itself doesn't have this like major impact on the long run well-being of a child, but
Hmm.
if there's no support, then it has a huge impact. And I've spent a lot of
Hmm.
time trying to figure out the reason why that is. And the best answer, and I'm looking for your advice on this. The best answer I can come up with is a child who has autism does not fit well into the box that we've created from an education perspective, from a healthcare perspective, from a society perspective. Like, they just don't fit well into that system. Unless you
Hmm.
have somebody who's willing to sit there and work with them in a very different way than a child
Hmm.
who doesn't have autism would need to be worked with, they're not going to be able to develop the key skills that they need to just navigate all of the stuff that we have to learn how to navigate in life. So that
True.
again, that's the best kind of meditation I've been able to come up with, but I'm curious to hear your
Hmm.
reflection on this.
Um, I totally agree. There really isn't a certain set fit that's going to be the right thing for autism. It's all different in how you treat it and how it's and everything.
Yeah, one of the things we've learned, and one of the things we're really intentional about, is that exactly what you just said. There is no one size fits all approach, right? And that's what our, even
Hmm.
our traditional schooling applies, is a one size fits all approach. It's you sit
Hmm.
down with this individual human and you learn them. How do
Hmm.
they perceive the world? How do they think about the world? What do they like? What do they not like? And there's all of these different ways you can
Hmm.
sit down and learn another person. In the same way we would sit down and just learn, two friends would sit down and get to know each other. And then once you do that, you can build out the educational roadmap very clearly that works for that human.
Hmm. But it's
Outside
so
of
much
that,
different,
go ahead. Go ahead.
but it's so much different for the next person, like you're saying. It's just it's all different ways of treating it depending on the case. So it really is a case by case on how you treat it.
Yeah, Ross is different from Armand, is different from Becky, is different from Joanne, right? Like, these are all
Hmm.
such different beings. And the irony is, we we know this, we being the Unity behavioral team, we know this to be true across all children, like even children without autism. This same methodology applies in such a fascinating way. So
Hmm.
I didn't talk to you about this when we were at the fair, but we do work, we do consulting work with parents for early childhood development, where we
Hmm.
work with them on a weekly basis. We're much less involved than we are with autism. The children we support who have autism, it's more like consulting.
Hmm.
We sit down with them and we help them identify these things and we build out the roadmaps for them. The
Hmm.
children who we're working with, and it's just a few hours a week of conversation with the parents, they are so far ahead of their peers. It's not even funny. Like, these kids are walking at 9 months, 10 months, 11 months old, right?
Really?
And
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's just like these crazy ideas, but it makes perfect sense when you sit down and you say, okay, wait a second. Obviously, they would be ahead if you're building all of their development based off of what they like. Just on the sheer
Hmm.
fact of they're able to develop longer. Like, they don't get burnt out when they're practicing someone. Like, for example, my niece, obviously, you know, I have
Hmm.
a company that's focused on human development, and so she goes through our programs, and she's recently learned how to climb the stairs and climb down the stairs, and she's about 9 months old.
Hmm.
And so she will very excitedly crawl up to the stairs. And so whoever's near her drops what they're doing and goes and journeys with her up and down the stairs. And we'll go and we'll make 3 or 4 trips. That is a
Hmm.
very valuable development time for her that she enjoys a lot. What has changed from the time you were a young boy to a young man to now an adult as it relates to the support for children with autism? Like, what have you seen that has changed? What level of resources are available, and how should parents leverage that new set of resources differently?
What has changed is the fact that there's just such abundant of resources. Like there was no ABA therapy, there was no speech therapy for autism, there was no occupational therapy. All these different therapies that are out there, there was no resources to really utilize any of these therapies, and the fact that they're out there, I hope that parents can take advantage of them and use them. I mean, just wish that I had that advantage to have that type of treatment early on, because and right now I'm still getting therapy in some areas. It's in more in a higher level language and pragmatic language type therapy that I'm getting now, and other therapy. But
Yeah, and I would liken what you're doing now more to like education at this point, right? Because a lot of
and
the
going back to
behavioral
school.
stuff, yeah, you have right exactly, right?
Hmm.
You have mastery over the sensory and behavioral components that
Hmm.
you've needed to learn over the course of these years, which is where a lot of the therapy is targeted at. And then now where your therapy is focused is more just again more complex understanding of language and how do you navigate that and how do you interpret somebody else's feelings or reactions or emotions and understand what they're
Hmm.
thinking because you might be interpreting it differently than they are. It's that type of
Correct.
stuff, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And some vocabulary issues and different things like that. So it's at a higher level. And when I was
Mm-hmm.
younger, I didn't start speaking sentences till I was 3 years old,
Okay.
um, and I had like a speech issue with speech impediment, and so there was a lot of speech issues when I was younger. And then when I got older, it was more of a higher level language, kind of processing information and receiving the information and understanding what the other person is saying and picking up on those cues. And so it looks different as you get older. But I would have probably improved even more had I had the therapies that are that they have now versus what they had then, which was really nothing, but maybe like play therapy or something. And that was a
Okay.
benefit
Yeah.
that I did have early on when I was very young and my mother was trying to figure out what was wrong with me. She got me into some type of therapy, which was play therapy, and that helped me improve.
When did
And
you
then I had a
start play therapy?
when I was probably about 4 years old, 4 or 5,
Okay.
but we she put me I was actually in regular therapy when I was 2 or 3 years old because they didn't know what was wrong. And um but just to be in some type of treatment plan when you're younger, and all these other therapies that are out there will definitely help, shorten the road ahead.
It's interesting. Your mom really mastered this concept of early
Hmm.
intervention and figuring things out to get as much as she could early. And I see it in your ability to have conversations like with me now, right? Because
Hmm.
I see the cases all the
On
time,
the
like of a 40-year-old man or woman who they didn't have this, and mom is now trying to figure out like, hey, there are some really basic skills I'm trying to teach.
Hmm.
They,
No, I
it,
wouldn't.
go ahead.
I'm sorry, you're cutting out. Oh, go ahead.
You were saying you wouldn't.
Oh, no, no. I was saying that when I was younger, I was so much more severe. I mean, I wouldn't be having this type of conversation when, even when kids would have a conversation with other kids or adults. I would be, rearranging the furniture, yelling, when I was able to speak, I was like yelling, rearranging furniture, things weren't in the right place, talking to my arm, stimming. I mean, I had all the behavior signs. They
Yeah.
just didn't know what it was, or it didn't quite fit because I wasn't quite as severe as the most severe.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I had all the signs and symptoms that a lot of children, that some do to this day.
You're transitioning perfectly. I actually wanted to ask you about this. The early parts of your life, and so you're talking about
Hmm.
play, and this is really the area that I want to sit in for a minute. When you
Hmm.
were engaging with other children, like at what point in time did you have the ability to start engaging with other children? How old were you?
Well, I was about 6 years old, and I think when I look back at the reports, that my mom had kept and everything, I started taking more initiative of asking the other kid to play or to be involved in the play. But before that, I was really restricted on my play, and I was just playing with some certain toy, and I wasn't engaging with the other kids at all. It got
Mm-hmm.
better, but I was still developmentally behind even at 6 years old. But there was starting to show improvement in my play a little bit, but I still had behaviors where I was restricted at times.
When did it get better, and like, what do you remember about those experiences from either the reports or your own memory around that 6-year-old time
What
frame,
age?
before or after, like where you were on this journey of like understanding how to interact in social
Hmm.
settings with other kids? Like, talk me
Um,
through that history.
it got better a little bit when I got to be about 8 years old. I guess at the time, and finally got the diagnosis. I had all those years of some type of therapy,
Mm-hmm.
and the behaviors were less noticeable. I still had issues with picking up on cues and
Mm-hmm.
processing language and learning issues. And I was socially inappropriate at times and a little silly, but
Yeah.
I was more wanting to make friends, but didn't really know how. And I share this in the book where my mom saw another kid outside and she asked that kid to be my friend. And we remained friends all the way through high school. But that was an example of I was starting to become more aware of my surroundings and wanted to meet other people and make friends.
This is the parts of the book where I was showing him on camera. The queen bee tried to help
Hmm.
Autie leave the hive more often. His behavior was too much for the queen to handle. Like these sections, she was
No,
Autie needed someone to
actually,
help with his fears, playing with other bees and flying out of the hive.
no, actually, it was the part where right before the school part, there was a part in the book about Audie and at school or something,
Mm-hmm.
and it's right before that where she asked the other bee to be friends with Audie.
Oh,
Play
where
with.
she specifically said, "Hey, will you?"
Can
Because
you
you,
play with?
yeah, 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 yeah. Because she had tried to get
Sorry,
you into
it's a little
sports.
different in the book. I'm sorry, it's a little different in the book than in real
Yeah,
life. So, I mean, in real life, she actually asked the other kid if he could be my friend.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so your mom helped you build these friendships, and you were having trouble finding the ways to interact on your own.
Yes.
During that time, like, what was the experience? So were you kind of like the outcast kid that wasn't able? You were just having to figure out how to be in groups, but nobody really wanted to accept you. Was it something
Um,
else? Like, there's all these stories about what that feeling is like.
I didn't really quite fit in, and but then I kind of blended in when I got older because I was more aware, but I didn't really quite fit in where I knew how to initiate, you know, um, get into a conversation or figure out how to join into a group. And so I kind of was like just trying to like figure out how do I fit in this group. And this is when I got older, like junior high and high school. And of course those were the hard years.
Yeah,
Junior high was the worst, but
yeah,
and
yeah.
high school got better. But I never really stuck out. But I just didn't quite fit in because I didn't really know how to initiate the conversation or what subject to get into or um, how to share certain interests.
What was your
So,
feeling associated with that? Like, what was the how did Ross feel not fitting in?
oh, I just felt. it really affected me a lot, affected my self-esteem a lot and everything. And I had a few friends and stuff, but in school, I really didn't have many friends unless I had them outside of school, and trying to, yeah, it just affected me a lot.
Like you were conscious that you were different in some kind of way and didn't know why that was the
Yeah.
case.
Yeah. But I didn't like, I was, I'm aware I'm a different in some ways, but I didn't, not blend in enough that I
Right.
couldn't fit in. And so
Right.
it made it really challenging.
Yeah.
And it made it hard because people didn't really understand, and they didn't know I was on the spectrum. And back then, there wasn't any awareness of autism, so you wouldn't really talk about it. And I didn't really look like I had autism or anything really wrong with me, and I looked like
Right.
I could fit in.
Right.
So it just made it more complicated. And it, in almost in some ways, I wish that I was more severe like I was younger, because I wasn't aware of anything. And then when I got aware, it made it more complicated. But in some ways, it helped me not to, um I hate to say that, it helped me to not be a target as much. um so it's made things more complicated. But in some ways, it was easier having the treatment early on. So I'm just saying,
Hmm.
you have to take the good with the bad.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I agree. You're describing the real meaning behind ignorance is bliss,
It's such a
right? Like,
spectrum, and when you have the treatment early on,
hmm,
the levels of autism can change,
right.
where you were when you were younger is not where you are when you get older. And that's kind of where I what I put in the book. And the levels of autism changing as the shadings of the colors change as he
Yeah.
improves, the bee improves.
He gets lighter blue by the middle of the book. At the end
Or
of the
then
book, he
lighter
starts to have
yellow.
some yellows, and then
Yeah,
now he's
where he's
playing
more like the other
pickleball and he's
bees.
crushing people on the court.
Yeah, so
Um,
it.
there's this really I talk to moms and dads about something all the time. They're I was actually talking to a family just this week about this. Children have these unwritten rules of play, and they're not just children; it's all
Mhm.
humans. Like it's foundational to how we interact with each other, and so the word play can be synonymous with just human interaction. There are these unwritten rules, and nobody walks into a room and is like, this is what you do in order to engage with someone else. But it's all accepted and it's all normalized and it's all known, and it's a very deep method of human connection. And if children aren't able to figure that out by about 4 years old, which
Mhm.
is when the play really kicks off. Like it starts going exponential at that point because we're in daycares and pre-Ks and school, and so we've developed this understanding of each other, and we know that, like for example, one of the rules is if you want to be involved in a game that is going on, like maybe it's a game of kickball, you don't just run in and get
Mhm.
involved in the game. You kind of walk up to
Okay.
the game and you watch a little bit and you see what's happening, and then other kids will see that you're watching and they'll invite you in,
Yeah.
and you follow the rules based on what you've seen the other
Mhm.
kids do. You don't try to make your own rules, and so you don't control
Mhm.
it when you're just first involved. And all of these are like very subtle but very complex structures of
Mhm.
communication and play. And so, for you, and what I'm hearing you talk about is really like understanding this fully didn't come until
Mhm.
late junior high or maybe even high school time frame. And only
Yeah.
because of your mom did you even have some understanding of it at 2, 3, 4, so that you could start working on those rules and start understanding those rules. But it was a very long path to get those things. And I
Yeah.
think about this in the context of parents, because if if we're able to catch that those types of things aren't being developed, those behaviors, those communication
Mhm.
structures, those rules of play, the subtle things that children just pick up on experientially and
Mhm.
naturally, but that autistic children don't, because their experience in the world is different from the other children. And so their
Mhm.
way of understanding those rules has to be different than other children. it
Mm-hmm.
has such a long run impact. Like just in what you're talking about that little bit of wisdom that I'm describing here.
Mm-hmm.
Getting it earlier has a 15-year difference in
Mm-hmm.
what your experience is. It could be
Yeah.
developmentally, it could be just your feeling, like how do you interact with the world? And one of the things that
Mm-hmm.
I think is really special here is that you're giving, like there are a couple families that I want to hear this, because you're giving
Mm-hmm.
a mom who doesn't know how to understand exactly what her son is going through a very
Mm-hmm.
clear picture of, look, this is what I felt by not having access to this other thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty hard. But I figured it out because I
Yeah.
was determined and my mom was determined. So don't give up, mom. But
Yeah. And the family
also,
too.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Um, well, and and I hear also stories, still hear stories of parents who don't want to admit that their child has something wrong, or don't want to get them services, or don't even want to get them a diagnosis. And I just feel that they're it's such a disadvantage, because where everywhere that I've, with all the support and treatment I've had, I can only imagine if you just don't even admit that there's something wrong to get them checked out. And I'm just hearing stories that their adults are still living at home, that they're not able to even function to do anything at all. I mean,
Yeah.
they living at home is one thing, but they can't even do anything besides having the parent with them all the time, and they're adults, and they didn't have any diagnosis or treatment or anything, and that just
Yeah.
saddens me. They still hear
Yeah.
those stories.
Those are the hardest conversations I have, Ross. It's when a mom or a dad calls me and they're in their late 60s to low 80s and they're saying,
Hmm.
I don't know what my child is going to do when I pass away. Like they're
Hmm.
thinking in those terms because it's exactly the scenario you're talking about. It's not about living at home, right? Like that part is really
Hmm.
doesn't matter all that much.
But if
But
they've got to be
it's
everywhere with their parents up into
exactly
adulthood, and they can't do anything without their parents anywhere they go, or
correct.
anything they do, and they can't reach out to other people for
Hmm.
support, and that is a problem.
The world is never going to take care of a child, a
Hmm.
teen, an adult the way their mom and dad will take care of them. The world has an
Hmm.
expectation that everybody can be self sufficient and can contribute to the collective. And so it is a very harsh place for the people that can't do that. And contribute is, I mean, it's not a high bar. It's not like you have to go and be president to contribute, right? Contribute is going to
Hmm.
the pickleball court and experiencing and engaging in a game. It's writing a book, it's
Hmm.
sharing your experiences, it's going to the
Hmm.
supermarket and smiling at other people while you're buying your groceries. Like contribute, it's not a very high bar that you have to achieve to contribute, but for those that can't
Hmm.
contribute, the world's a very harsh place.
Hmm.
Very harsh. And I agree with you. It's the worst calls I get. The worst calls I get are moms and dads who are in that place.
Hmm. Mm.
It's it's the saddest situation.
Yeah. And I just hope that, I can get the message across, for them not to give up hope, and their loved ones too. Mm.
So a lot of what you've been talking to me about is how much support is available now that didn't
Mhm.
exist previously. Let's go into that more. What do you mean by that? What does the support look like? You're very deeply ingrained into the community of autism. You've experienced it firsthand,
Mhm.
but you also know a lot about it as an observer. Talk to me about that.
Mhm. I'm sorry, say that you said about what does the
About the
treatment look
support. The
like
support exists.
of the
The support
support?
that exists today that doesn't exist, that didn't exist, and how parents should be taking advantage how parents should be taking advantage of that, or perceiving
Mhm.
that, or looking at that, or frankly, in a sense, being
Mhm.
excited about the resources that are there to help them. Like, talk me through what you mean by these things.
There's a more of awareness of autism, that people can reach out for these services like ABA therapy. I mean, and the different other therapies like speech therapy, and um, they weren't. They might have been around, but they weren't as known about. I mean, people didn't know about them, and they weren't really advertised for people to get those resources that can really benefit people. Um, who really could use them. I mean, not. I mean, I had psychology and that type of therapy when I was younger, but it would help to have other an autism community and other people who are understanding about autism and everything that's going on, and then the resources that
Yeah.
they can use.
What are these, like, in your mind, what are the resources that make the most sense for children to have? Because I think that there's a different problem today than
Hmm.
existed when you were a young man or young boy, which is there's so much information that parents don't even know where to
Hmm.
start, right? And so
Hmm.
you're a man now with the ability
Hmm.
to look back and say, okay, if my mom had these three things or this one thing or these five things in this order,
Okay.
what would that have looked like from your perspective?
It would be like I think ABA therapy would have really benefited me to the fact that I could, you know, visualize by seeing the interaction of, or visualize people interacting, and taking on those interactions. Speech therapy,
Okay.
um, for language and all that stuff, and higher level language, pragmatic language. Um, Therapy I was already getting, which was talk therapy, which was benefiting me.
What's the difference
Um,
between talk and speech so that I have an understanding there? Or
the
mom's
speech
concern?
would be more like higher level language, pragmatic language. Um, some of the vocabulary, understanding, picking up on the social cues. There's a little trying to explain, hard to explain higher level language, but it's more of the processing of um, social cues and interactions and stuff. That makes
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What This is a lot, right? We've talked about play, speech, talk, and ABA so far.
Hmm.
So, what
Hmm.
is your interpretation? Like, how do you view those things? What are they providing? You've talked a
What are
lot
they
about
providing?
ABA, you talked a lot about speech, you've talked a lot about talk. So, what does someone get from ABA then?
Just learning how to interact better and seeing it in action. I mean, that's what I understand from ABA. Is it more of applying that behavior or action?
Mm-hmm.
Do I have that correct?
Yeah, I
The
generally
therapy that
explain
you
it to
provide.
people as custom curated educational programs, custom curated developmental programs. So, not just, hey, you need to get to this point, but we can see where you're at and we can build a very thoughtful roadmap of how you're going to get to the key end
Hmm.
destinations, the ability to play, the ability to talk, the ability to handle and conduct yourself in the world, the ability to be independent, maybe is a way to say that.
Hmm.
The ability to manage the sensory overload, the behaviors, the just,
Hmm.
for you, it was the furniture's not arranged in the right way. Well, you don't get
Hmm.
to go into a hotel lobby and be like, hey, all your furniture's not arranged in the right way. So, how do you
Hmm.
handle that moment where you're like, this furniture isn't arranged in the right way? And by the way, look, man,
Hmm.
the Unity team will tell you, I am one of the most particular, like, everything has a place, it needs to be in its place. My father was an absolute maniac about that. And so I have that idea of like everything has to be in its place, but I also
Hmm.
know the skill of I don't get to manipulate all these environments, right? And so
Hmm.
a lot of these things are things that people who don't have autism experience. Stimming, people who click their pin are stimming. That's what it is, right?
Hmm.
It's just much more extreme and it's much more aggressive and it comes out in a much more forward way. And so behavioral therapy is targeted at how do the individual, take control
Hmm.
over you, the self, right? I think is a good way to
Hmm.
describe it for parents. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased in this regard because it's a field that I work in, but it's
Hmm.
also a field that I've studied a lot about, and I think there's a lot of benefit to this.
Yes, definitely.
I'll tell you something interesting, Ross. Do you know I actually come from a 10-year plus career in technology.
Hmm.
And I didn't work in education or behavioral therapy for the majority of my career. It's a recent transition. I actually came over here because I was working on technology that is designed to custom curate individualized education programs for every child based on everything,
Hmm.
morality, skills, like information, behavior, all of it. Like, how do you develop a custom roadmap for life? And the idea was if we can arm schools with this ability at a much cheaper rate, then we can help a
Hmm.
lot of kids grow and develop faster. And along that journey, this was years ago, multiple years ago, probably about 5 years ago, I met the person who is one of my partners here and our chief clinical officer, Yanni Cario. And her husband and I are very close.
Hmm.
And he was like, you know, it was a new time in their relationship. And he was like, hey, Yanni, Armand is working on some educational technology. Armand, Yanni works in education. Y'all should talk. Like, it was the first time he was introducing
Hmm.
her to our group. And I
Hmm.
was sitting her there explaining our idea from a technological perspective, and she was like, "Wait, technology can do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool." And she's like, "Let me tell you what I work in, like what I do." And she worked in ABA.
Hmm.
And I was like,
Wow.
"Wait, there's a place where this happens, where people are getting individualized education programs and treatment programs." She was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I didn't know that this was like that there was any field where the science was being applied." She was like, "It is." And
Mm.
so we ended up building Unity Behavioral as a result of that conversation
Awesome.
to just be
Awesome.
the best at those like individualized curated programs. And so I don't know that
Uh-huh.
I told you that when we were at the fair, but that's a little bit
No,
about
no,
our
you
story.
didn't. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah,
Pray.
yeah, yeah. What what do you what do you want moms and dads to know? Like, if you were, you know, if you had a child with autism, or you were talking to a mom and she was just like, "Ross, I'm lost. Like, I don't know what to do." And I hear this all the time, by the way. I get a call
Hmm.
every day or every other day from a mom who's like, "Please help. I have no clue what to do here."
Hmm.
And you know, those can be some really difficult calls. I'm
Yeah.
curious what you would advise them about, what you would tell them.
Well, basically what I've already kind of shared is just to keep utilizing the resources out there, and also just know that you're going to go through a difficult time, and hopefully things will get better. It'll just take time, and not to give up the hope and the belief that it will get better. It just utilize all the resources you can and the support that's out there, because there definitely is support out there. And I know it's not easy, but it'll get easier slowly as time goes on. But it'll be a rough ride at first.
I think you nailed it. Well, Ross, friends in the community, I think, Ross, there are a lot of people who are going to feel a sense of calm just as a result of hearing your wisdom. And
Oh,
you're
hope
quickly
so.
becoming a good friend. So I really appreciate you spending some time with me today, team. Go check out No Be
Thank
Like
you
Me.
so much. Thank you so much for having me and letting me share my story. I really hope that this was able to get the message out.
I hope this isn't the last time you and I are talking on a format like this. I think that we have many
Me
more of these
too.
conversations in store.
Me too.
All right, sir. Well, is there anything you want to give to the community? You want to plug No Be Like Me? Where can we go buy it?
You can buy it on Amazon. No Be Like Me.
No Be Like Me, ladies and gentlemen. This is an incredible story, and we love reading it to our kids. So we got a few copies when we met Ross at the fair, and you know,
Oh, thank you for ordering those.
Of course. Ross, I'm sending you my love, man. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all of your insights and wisdom. Team, feel free to reach out to
Thank
us
you.
or reach out to
Appreciate it.
Ross, and we'll connect soon, yeah?
All right. Talk to you later. Thank
Take
you
care, guys.
again.
Take care, Ross.